Many young Christians are under the delusion that theologians, the people that write the big fat books that tell Christians what they are supposed to be believing about God, that those guys are experts in the biblical languages and in Greek and Hebrew, etc., and that they study the original languages really hard, and that's how they come to their conclusions. It was kind of a shock for me the further I went into both biblical studies and theology to realize that those are two completely different fields. Theologians are not experts in the biblical languages, and in biblical studies, they're actually philosophers. Another delusion that I was under when I was younger was thinking that theology and philosophy are completely different enterprises. They're different universes. They're not. Theology really is kind of a subset of philosophy. It's just super smart people meditating on and speculating about the infinity of God. And the use of Scripture is often way, way down, not just secondary, way, way down the list in terms of their resources and the conclusions that they come to. So all this to say, most people, young people, really believe that the theologians, the Christians that are telling us what we need to believe about God, laying out the divine attributes and telling us what God's will is, etc., that they are experts in biblical interpretation. They're not. Usually they're not. They took some courses probably in their master's level studies, but those are long in the rearview mirror, and they're doing a lot more philosophical speculation than biblical interpretation. And furthermore, the biblical interpreters, the people who are experts in Greek and Hebrew, are not the ones driving the theological enterprise and telling us what we need to believe about God or informing the theologians. The theologians are the ones telling the biblical scholars what they're allowed to say and not say oftentimes, at least in the context of orthodoxy. I was really shocked by all this, and it was really driven home to me when I went to study systematic theology at one of the really premier evangelical Bible-believing institutions in the nation. And you may want to slow down and think about what I'm going to say here. Not once did I have to bring the Bible to a theology seminar. So we're theologians in training to be people who are telling the church what they need to believe about God. And not a single class did I have to bring the Bible to class. Why? Because theology is much more about philosophy, and then furthermore, I just did a video about this. These philosophical theologians are the ones who set the parameters on the biblical scholars and tell them what they need to say. And this is all stuff that you will never see just being a young Christian sitting in church or just reading the books that are hot off the press. And in the theological books, if you study the biblical texts that are used to make or emphasize certain points, they're usually cherry-picked, and they're not oftentimes respecting the context of Scripture. So anyway, there's a lot more that could be said about this, but theology and philosophy are not just joined at the hip. They're really so mixed up together that it's you can't really separate them. And biblical studies and theology are completely different animals, and it is theology that controls biblical studies and not the other way around. So, I hope this is also some food for thought, and you can stick this in your pipe, smoke it, think about it, and be troubled.